Hello again. Welcome to session 2 of our vaping workshop. This is our Vaping Education workshop. I'm Charity Luthi. I do the social media for the Vapor Depot. And maybe you're familiar with vaping and you just want to learn a little bit more about it, or maybe you want to start or want a little more info before you do. And this is the workshop for you. We're going to start with a common question. How do the nicotine levels in e-cig liquid stack up when you compare them with cigarettes? In general, people who vape will get less nicotine than smokers will. And the reasons for that vary, but some of the big reasons are the e-liquid just contains less nicotine than cigarettes do. And smokers, when you light up, and I know I did this, you light up a cigarette, you feel like you're going to waste it if you don't smoke the whole thing. So you sit there and you smoke the whole cigarette. Whereas when you're vaping, you take a couple puffs, get what you need, and you can put it away. So let's talk a little bit about nicotine density. The nicotine density is the number of milligrams of nicotine per milliliter of e-liquid. So an example is a 10 ml bottle of 24 milligram nicotine would contain a total of 240 milligrams in the entire bottle. And this math is simple: 10 milligrams times 10 milliliters times 24 milligrams comes to 240. That works out to about 1.2 milligrams of nicotine per milliliter, or about 20 drops of e-liquid. A typical tank holds about 2.5 milligrams of e-liquid. So if you fill a 2.5 milliliter tank once per day and use the whole thing, you're going to get about 2.4 milligrams of nicotine, which is about the same as what is contained in the smoke of 2 cigarettes. A traditional cigarette, before it's lit, contains between 9 and 26 milligrams of nicotine, although we're not totally sure on that. It's a trade secret of the tobacco industry. But in general, in tests on the smoke itself contains about 1 milligram of nicotine per cigarette. So here's some frequently asked questions about nicotine. Will it kill you? No, absolutely not. It can in large doses, but in normal everyday use, no. Nicotine is just a mild stimulant, similar to caffeine when you take it into the human body. It doesn't cause cancer or emphysema. What causes cancer and emphysema in smokers is the tar and thousands of chemicals and chemical compounds that you get when you smoke a lit cigarette. So if you're a smoker and you're thinking about switching over, you want to know what nicotine level you should get. Most pack per day smokers of a normal cigarette is between 18 and 24 milligrams bottles that they get in the e-liquid. So a lot of people have questions about vaping and is it safe? And there's been a lot of e-cig studies and a lot is known. And when the FDA tries to tell you that not much is known about e-cigs and we need to know more, it's disingenuous at best, because a lot is known. There's been a lot of studies done. The studies that you hear about most in the mass media are fear stories. They're funded by big tobacco or big pharmaceutical companies who are losing money to e-cigs, whether it's from people quitting smoking using them or people choosing them to quit smoking instead of patches or gums. Now, we can't tell you that e-cigs are a smoking cessation product, but we can tell you that millions of smokers worldwide do use e-cigs to get away from the harmful effects of combustible tobacco products. Many of the studies that are done on electronic cigarettes are poorly designed, or they only publicize the findings that fit what they want to find, the ones that say e-cigs are dangerous. But the comprehensive unbiased studies on electronic cigarettes find that they're a much safer alternative to traditional smoking products. Now, probably the study that you will have heard about the most recently was a study done last month where a researcher claimed to find alarming levels of formaldehyde in electronic cigarette vapor. The problem is that he didn't find formaldehyde using normal settings that a vapor would use. Instead, he had to crank a very powerful battery up to its highest setting and then not add e-liquid to the unit that he was using as the experiment progressed. So what he was essentially testing was how much formaldehyde is in a cotton wick when it burns. Did I hit the wrong button? Oh, yeah, here we go. What is formaldehyde? Okay, formaldehyde is a naturally occurring chemical compound, and it's in small amounts everywhere. It's in carpeting, construction products, insulation, cell phones, electrical appliances. It's literally everywhere. You'll get more formaldehyde from rolling on a new carpet than you will from using an electronic cigarette. Formaldehyde has a very pungent, irritating odor that once you've ever smelled it, you never forget what it smells like. So why was this study flawed and invalid? Well, in short, the researcher couldn't find, he could not replicate finding formaldehyde when it was used at a normal level, but a person who used e-cigs would normally set their electronic cigarette to. And he had to set it to extreme settings to get those levels. And when the research was reviewed by his scientific peers, they found that the methodology was flawed, they found that the results were flawed. And then a Canadian study that followed it up found that normal e-cig usage creates formaldehyde similar to that given off by carpeting. But some of the unbiased e-cig studies, Boston University for instance, found that the chemicals used in e-cig vapor are so small that they know that they're there, but they can't measure how much there are. They're just so small. Common things around us emit more chemical compounds than electronic cigarettes, including coffee, printers, carpeting, office supplies, ink and toner, dry clean clothes, nail polish, air fresheners, hairspray, and even cooking gives off more particulate in the air, chemicals and chemical compounds than electronic cigarette vapor. A study published in the American Journal of Preventive Medicine found that e-cigs are not a gateway to smoking. Some of the anti-vaping and anti-smoking activists like to say that e-cigs are dangerous to our youth because they're a gateway. Kids will start with e-cigs and then move on to smoking. But the study that was published found that that wasn't true. They found that actually smoking's a gateway to electronic cigarettes, because smokers will turn to electronic cigarettes as a way to get away from the harmful effects of combustible tobacco. The study further found that young people are more influenced by their peers, their family members, or stressors around them to choose either smoking or vaping, rather than any of the flavors or the advertising. In 2014, an e-cig survey found that 80% of ex-smokers who are using electronic cigarettes use non-tobacco flavors, and 60% of those vapors are using a fruit or sweet flavored e-liquid, which is the ones that the anti-vaping advocates say are dangerous and need to be banned. But 99% of all e-liquids sold nationwide is used by adult former smokers. So what all these numbers mean is that the real market for sweet flavors and fruit flavors and non-tobacco flavors is adult former smokers who, after they quit smoking, don't like the taste of tobacco anymore. And I know that for a fact, because when I switched over to vaping, I cannot no longer stand to be around people who smoke. The smell that comes off of them when I'm around them, the smell is horrible. If you've ever tried to light a cigarette after you switch to vaping for a while, you won't go back. And then you get to where even the tobacco flavors that you normally like, you won't like the taste anymore, and you'll want to switch to something else. And that's why it's important that the flavors remain available for adult former smokers to purchase. The American Heart Association did a study that found that electronic cigarettes are 95% effective in keeping smokers from returning to combustible tobacco products. The second most effective method was cold turkey at 18%. A study by the United Kingdom's National Health System found that nearly all e-cig users are former smokers, adult former smokers. And another study published in the academic journal Drug and Alcohol Dependence found that electronic cigarettes deliver less nicotine than even nicotine patches. So if people are concerned that you're getting too much nicotine using an electronic cigarette, well, studies have proven that that's actually not true. So what's in e-liquid? Our e-liquid is made from 5 ingredients that have already been approved as safe for human consumption by the FDA and the European Union, and those include propylene glycol, vegetable glycerin, food flavorings, medical grade liquid nicotine, but almost all e-cigs are available without any nicotine in it, and distilled or purified water. Propylene glycol has a lot of myths attached to it. A lot of people think that it's antifreeze, but it's not antifreeze. Propylene glycol is an FDA-approved food additive that's in thousands of products that Americans use every single day. It is sometimes put into antifreeze to make it less toxic. So if there's a spill, your pets won't die, or if your kids get into it, they probably won't die. Propylene glycol is a suspension liquid used in thousands of products, and we have a short list of some of the things that you probably have in your house right now that contain propylene glycol, including children's Tylenol, water flavorings like Mio or the Kool-Aid brands, chewy cookies, asthma inhalers, chewing gum, cough syrup, pharmaceuticals, cake mixes, Pop-Tarts, beer, ice cream, whiskey, salad dressings, breakfast waffles, Tabasco sauce, and thousands more. Vegetable glycerin is another common food additive. It's odorless, colorless, and very, very sweet, made from palm oil, coconut oil, or soy. It's also used in thousands of products people use every day, including toothpaste, cosmetics, cake mixes, chewing gum, candy, and many, many more. It enhances the flavors of e-liquid and makes bigger vapor clouds. Food flavorings are another common food additive. They're used in the manufacture of a lot of packaged food products, candies, chewing gum, things like that. They're used in almost every packaged food item that you can buy in a grocery store. Liquid nicotine isn't necessarily from tobacco. It is extracted from nicotine-rich plants, including potatoes and tomato plants, in a lab, where it's bottled and then shipped to manufacturers who make the e-liquid with the flavors. The e-liquid manufacturers dilute the extracted nicotine and measure it out according to milligram for retail sales. Most e-liquid is also available, as I mentioned, in zero nicotine versions. So here is a few other things that people sometimes use personal vaporizers for. The most common use, of course, is nicotine replacement therapy for smokers who want to get away from the harmful effects of combustible tobacco. But it can be used for other things, and some of these include herbal oils, dried herbs, and waxes. Now they take a special kind of heating element to use. You can't use a regular electronic cigarette vaporizer to use it for some of these things. But there are people who do use a standard electronic cigarette personal vaporizer with zero nicotine added, and they vape sweet flavors when they're dieting to satisfy sweet cravings that they might have. This is the last slide in our presentation, and I hope that you have enjoyed learning a little bit more of the advanced vaping technologies. We'll be back with our third vaping workshop, which is our advocacy and legal education, in just a little while. Thank you so much.